To Portugal from Creed with Invasion Barbar, which I have a f***ing decant of, which I've left over there. Hello everyone, welcome back to all of you in the Smelly Army. So for today's video, I'm going to pick out one fragrance for each season, and I'm going to throw down the challenge to a few other reviewers to do this video, to a challenge video or a tag video, if you like. Today's video is sponsored by my friends over at Fragrance Samples UK. That is my favourite place, my recommended place to buy fragrance samples wherever you are in the world. They have an amazing range. I think it's over 600 designer and niche fragrances from all kinds of well-known brands and some of the smaller brands that are emerging too. And they have worldwide shipping if you're in the UK or in 14 EU countries that you can find available to select at the checkout in the drop-down menu. Then you just order through their website. They have tracked shipping. If you're elsewhere in the world, for example in the USA, simply email them at info@fragrancesamplesuk.com and they will get those orders out to you wherever you are in the world. So it's a great service run by my wonderful friend Greg from the Greggy Boy 76 channel, one of the reviewers who really inspired me to start when I first got going. The link to their website is in the description of this video, and you can of course get samples of all 4 fragrances that I've picked here over at Fragrance Samples UK. Highly recommended, and it is very much business as usual there. Despite the current world situation, they're still posting stuff normally. Okay guys, so let's get stuck into it. One fragrance for each season. We've seen this done before, but this is the 2020 edition. I'm going to tag Carlos, the Brooklyn fragrance lover over in New York, and I'm also going to tag, well, I've got to do it, haven't I? I'm going to tag Greg from the Greggy Boy 76 channel here in the UK. Let's get stuck into the list then. So the first season over here in the UK, that is a new season that starts within the year, and we're just entering into it now in here in the UK, is of course spring. So let's pick out a great fragrance for spring. Of course this list, it could change from week to week, day to day. It's not definitive. They're not the only 4 fragrances that anyone should be thinking about, but right now I think these would make a really good lineup, but I've tried to pick some slightly less obvious ones. So my first pick, the fragrance I would choose this year if I just had to have one for spring, I think Viktor and Rolf Antidote, a really hard to find now discontinued fragrance, and one of a number of fragrances like that they do have to sample at Fragrance Samples UK, which is really great. This one was released in 2006. The perfumers were Alina Massenet and Pierre Vargny, and it's got a really long note listing which I'm going to rattle off quickly. You have bergamot, mandarin, mint, grapefruit and cardamom in the top. In the mid we have cinnamon, nutmeg, orange blossom, geranium, violet, freesia, jasmine and lavender, and the base notes are patchouli, leather, iris, sandalwood, tonka, amber, vanilla, oak moss, cedar, gaiac incense and white musk. Wonderfully complex fragrance, and many people are really struggling to give a succinct description of what this one's all about, and I'm probably going to be the same, but I really like it. I know it's one of Greg's big favourites. So Antidote, I think we class it officially as a fougere fragrance. It's got a certain greenness about it. I've seen a couple of people make references to Reflection Man from Amouage, and I kind of get that. I was thinking there's a similarity with Le Mal from Jean Paul Gaultier. There's this kind of creamy, woody tone to this one that you will recognise if you're a fan of either of those fragrances. But there's that, and there's so much more. There are quite a lot of floral notes in this one. As we can see from the note list, you've got orange blossom, geranium, freesia, jasmine. There's a fair bit of lavender, so you can even say there's a tiny bit of a barbershop kind of feel about it. So it's bright, it's breezy. It's also rich and woody in the base. It's spicy, it's very complex. I think there's quite a lot of aroma chemicals in here, making it last very well. I think it's got very good performance, but it's got this fresh, vibrant green spiciness about it that's really, really enjoyable. There's a creamy woodiness as well for me. And I just love wearing this. It's kind of a real smile on your face type of fragrance. It really makes me feel a little bit happier when I spray this on. Great performance, lovely bottle design, love what they did there. And for me, yeah, a spring fragrance. Oh, yeah, I like that little twist of mint that's in there as well. I think that works really well. I do pick up on that. So beautiful stuff, highly recommended. Victor and Rolf Antidote, if you can find it on eBay, that's the only way you're going to get a full bottle. But before you fork out a lot of money for that, you might want to try a sample, see if it's worth all the hype. Okay, so next up, after spring, if we're lucky, we move into summer, don't we? So summertime, of course, we're looking for something like spring that's going to be fresh, but we might want it to be even more transparent, or very, for me, very citrusy fragrances are great for summertime, and a lot of other people agree. So the fragrance that I've picked out is from Navitus Parfums, and this is Navus. This is the brand of Stephen from the channel Red Adolescence. So yes, it's one of these, oh God, all these YouTubers are doing fragrances. But you've got to hand it to Stephen, because this is one of the most professionally packaged ranges of fragrance. He just came out with a range of several fragrances. I think it was 6 all at once. And so far, this is my absolute favorite. The notes on Navus 2019 release, we've got bergamot, grapefruit, neroli, orange, pink pepper and juniper berry, so a lot of fresh citrusiness going on there. Those are the top notes. In the mid, there's amber, ylang ylang, rose and jasmine, and the base notes are musk, vetiver and cedarwood. This is just a soup. You know, if you watch the channel regularly, you know I do love citrus fragrances. I'm very simple. I like fresh, citrusy, orangey, lemony things. And this is a really beautiful, juicy, vibrant, very niche smelling example of that. I think I've got some on a little card here. It reminds me a little bit, it's by no means a copy of anything else as far as I can tell. It does remind me a little bit of Xerjoff 1861 Renaissance, which I love. Claire from the Smurfy Girly channel said she got a reminiscence of Aqua Amara from Bulgari, now discontinued, and that's no bad thing. So it's got this really juicy, orangey, vibrant element to it. I think there's some quite strong use of things like Ambroxan and or ISO E Super, because it really lasts and projects very well. Very good performance again, and just a really happy, not old school smelling like some of the stuff I'm into, bit of these kind of floral supporting notes giving it an airy feel, but all the while very nice longevity and projection. Maybe it doesn't develop massively and go from one thing in the beginning to another in the base, so if you want that, you might be a little bit let down, but it's a great performing, truly niche quality, superb freshie. And so for me, yeah, Navus, the standout so far from Stephen's line of Navitus Parfums, and good to see they've already got those up to sample on Fragrance Samples UK. So after the summertime, of course, we move into autumn or fall. I've selected one here from Rogue Perfumery, or Rogue Perfumes, and it's called Chypre Siam. This is a really interesting house, and they're really emerging a lot, these kind of smaller niche houses now. Chypre Siam from Rogue, the perfumer on this brand, Manuel Cross, a former chef who's now turned his skills to the world of perfumery. And this is a superb old school Chypre fragrance. The really interesting thing about this brand is they use a lot of IFRA non-compliant ingredients, so that their fragrances don't necessarily comply with the fragrance regulatory bodies regulations about what should be in fragrances that get their little stamp. But you don't have to have that to sell perfumes. And so this one has an absolute ton of real oak moss, which so many of us who love that ingredient miss in modern perfumes. Let's list the notes, in fact. So it's a 2017 release. The top notes are basil and kaffir lime. In the mid, you've got jasmine and ylang ylang. And the base notes are oak moss, sandalwood spices, benzoin, leather and civet. Wonderfully complex fragrance. It's bitter, it's green, as a Chypre fragrance should be. And this one, of course, Chypre Siam. Siam was the old name for Thailand. And it has a little bit of a twist of the exotic or even oriental in the fragrance kind of use of the term, because of that benzoin, that sweet resinous undertone to this one, which is mixed so skillfully with the lovely bitter green oak moss accord and some nice citrus notes and florals. Just a real old school classic. It's rich, it's a little bit warming and spicy and resinous, and that's why it kind of makes a good fragrance for me for the autumn time. The juice is kind of going into that dark, almost browny green colour, which reminds me maybe of the dying leaves on the trees, not in an ugly or bad way, but the kind of romanticism of that era of autumn. It would perhaps be the ideal season for this one. Of course, all fragrances can be worn anytime. But yeah, for me, I'd love to reach for this in the slightly melancholy season of autumn. Performance again, very, very strong. I think it's concentrated very, very highly. And it's got a real old school vibe. If you remember Coty's original Chypre, an early 20th century release, it's apparently got a lot of influence from that. And I actually have never tried that, but fans of that one may enjoy this. A real retro classic, and for me, perfect for the season of autumn. Last but not least, moving into the winter time, of course, we want maybe darker, richer, heavier fragrances. And I guess I'm somebody who's perhaps known for his love of the old school green fougères, the citrus aromatics, the fragrances that perhaps we associate with spring and summer, but I do like other stuff too. So for the winter time, I'm going with Bojnakov from Fortin Manley. It used to be called Mr. Bojnakov's Purple Hat. Perhaps that was a bit of a mouthful, so they've changed it. Lovely bottle design. Fortin Manley, then the perfumer for this one is a man called Rasai Fort. And this one has a rather interesting story about a Russian magician in the 19th century as a fictional magician, as the story behind this fragrance. Notes in the top you've got lavender, and in the mid you've got a dark chocolate and vanilla, and the base notes are vetiver, cedar, guaiac wood and oud, and it's got a lot of lavender. For me, if you took lavender, a bit of dark chocolate and oud, those are the real obvious standout accords. It's very, very rich, but it's very, very likable and affable. There are some oud fragrances that are a little bit off-putting. This one just has that very cleverly used twist of the kind of funky oud note, but it's mixed with this beautiful bitter dark chocolate and lovely lavender. So it's rich, it's definitely dark in the way that the bottle is very black there. Perfect fragrance, maybe for autumn and winter, but for me, I'd go for it as my out and out winter fragrance, my December, November, January type scent. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Again, a strong performer and a really magical creation from a great, great fragrance house, Fortin Manley. So guys, those are my 4. Please, I hope the other reviewers that I've mentioned will take up the challenge and do it. And anybody else out there who's got a YouTube channel, if I haven't tagged you, please go ahead. And it's a new tag series, 4 fragrances, 1 for each season, 2020 edition. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.